we're doing energy calcs, we're doing mechanical design. We don't care what appliances the people in, but put in. But when you're doing a net zero energy house, you kind of do. But the story's great. I think it's something like 80% of the appliances sold in California are Energy Star. But the big story is, and you can see between a standard, say a 28, this is a 28 cubic foot refrigerator, you can see that that the Energy Star is about 20% better than a standard refrigerator. But the big story is 10 years ago or 15 years ago, these appliances will be using 3 or 4 times as much energy to get the same performance out of them. That's how much more efficient they are now. And again, when your lights are better and your appliances are better and your house is nice and efficient, to provide that much energy becomes not that big a deal. And the fact that grid-tied solar electric systems have come down in price so dramatically makes the whole thing very doable. Okay, and then we have verification. And I know a lot of you are thinking, oh, this is a nightmare, but it's really not that big a deal, and it's not all that expensive, and some of it's just downright handy. For a lot of new homes, the way Tile 24 works is, it's just it really took a big jump in terms of how much harder it is to comply things this year than in prior years. And one of the few things the Tile 24 people can take credit for is blower door tests or duct blaster tests. And there's a few other HERS inspection items that come up, and they're a nice, handy credit. So if you have a house that's hard to comply, these are the first things people tend to do, along with solar thermal for domestic hot water. So these are kind of becoming a more common thing. But the other thing is with PV verification, again, this is every new house. When you put in a grid-tied solar electric system, in order to get the rebate, you have to have a third-party inspector show up, with a solar site selector to make sure the place is not, or it's whatever shading is being accounted for, what direction it's facing, exactly what area it is. I mean, they really do a nice job of making sure that the system produces what it's supposed to produce. So the result of the reductions in energy that we've seen just in the last 10 years, say, is we're seeing from 25 BTUs a square foot to something closer to 10 to 15. At least a 30% reduction in lighting and appliance loads. The point is that grid-tied solar electric systems can now easily provide enough energy for space conditioning, domestic hot water, lights, and appliances. And it can do it in a way that's surprisingly affordable. Okay, so we knew very well and fairly easily how to predict how many kilowatt hours you would need per year to do space heating, cooling, and domestic hot water. Lighting appliances was a little trickier. And so what we did is we went through all the DOE literature, and they predict basically on a room type basis how many how many kilowatts different types of rooms use based on their size. So what we do is we take the exact floor plan on the job, and for be it a master bedroom or a guest bedroom or a dining room or a playroom, whatever it is, we have an algorithm that we've developed that says this is what the normal person does in a house this size, and so we can predict how many kilowatt hours they're going to use. What we do at that point is we give it back to the homeowner and say, hey, how does your mileage differ? What exactly do you do differently in terms of, a lot of people run their business through their homes, and they may have 2 or 3 computers running 8-10 hours a day, or they've got some other activities that use a fair amount of electricity. So we can get feedback from that. We were very comfortable with these numbers because we worked on a lot of homes that had burned down and the people had an historic use. And we also worked for a lot of people who were just good engineers up in Silicon Valley who had gone through kind of a similar exercise in terms of what they were expecting to use. And so we got some really good feedback, and we thought, okay, we've got this nailed. We know how to predict how much they're going to use inside the home, how much in terms of lights and appliances. We also knew how much they're going to use for space conditioning. What we decided to do next was, okay, I mean, there's 5 or 6 working definitions of net zero energy, and they all have, a lot of them kind of ignore space conditioning and domestic hot water because it's complicated, or they ignore outdoor usage because it varies so much, or they, but what we chose to do is take kind of the hard path. We chose to say, you know what, we really want them to get to the end of the year and owe the utilities zero. I mean, that was our goal, to make it a truly net zero energy house. And we also believed that the price of solar electric was so competitive that it made sense to do that. So what we do is we have this first form is called our power consumption worksheet for standard usage, and our second form is our non-standard. And here's where it gets, where you really have to, I mean, you know, we send this back to the owner and we say, hey, you know, anything you can think of. And so you got your standard things like well pumps, swimming pool filter pumps, outdoor lighting, all sorts of hobby use, music studios, that sort of thing. And we just take the time to go through exactly what the people are going to use and exactly how much energy it's going to take to produce. And it's worked out pretty good. We've had great response from the homeowners. The homeowners also now kind of have a sense of ownership in this. You know, they've gone through the thought of it, and they've gone through, and we'd like to think that, you know, that when the houses get, you know, when they start moving into these homes, that they're going to be that much more in tune and try to, you know, remember to turn off their lights, blah, blah, blah. Okay. So at any rate, we've got this great little scorecard that factors in from the power consumption worksheets, the lighting and appliance loads, pretty much right off of the, or it can be dealt from the energy compliance work that either comes from an energy compliance person or the engineering company working on the job. We can calculate for domestic hot water, space heating, and cooling. We add all that together. We put in any extra usage, the stuff outside the house or hobby use or who knows what. We get a total annual consumption that we need to produce, and then it's just as simple as sizing a system to produce that much energy. As long as we're producing the same or slightly more, you got a net zero energy house. And like I say, I've got 100 of these just now finishing up. Our first one just finished up last month, and we'll go to that case study in a second. So what we're doing here is we're just providing a service whose goal is to promote, consult, specify, quantify, and verify net zero energy buildings. Our goal is to do this in a very low-cost, simple way. This is a green building program that is 100% energy. That's all we care about. There's a lot of green building programs. They're all fine. They're all great. We don't care about anything but energy. You know, and the reason for that is, you know, energy is the issue that, you know, I mean, it's kind of the big issue. You know, we spend $600 billion a year as a country to secure more energy. That's just to buy it, and we'd spend a hell of a lot more to